From Radio DePaul, Chicago's college connection.
My father spent 3 years restoring this car. It is his love. It is his passion.
I'm Michael Cera, and human skin is my passion.
I learned to feel things I've never felt before. Love, jealousy, passion for disemboweling.
Look at all the passion on that wall.
Well, jazz flute has always been a small passion of mine.
It's a bathroom. It's not just a bathroom, David. It's a passion project.
My passion project. Destroying someone else's passion project.
This is Passion Project with your host, Peyton Basden.
And we are back. Hello, what's up, y'all? As of right now, right here and now, it's a beautiful Thursday in the big city. And since that is the case, that means we've got another fantastic episode coming right your way. And today's episode is a special one because we've got a very amazing guest, longtime fan of the show.
Yeah.
Longtime friend, longtime cool person, longtime. I've been excited to have you for a long time.
Oh, I've been excited to be here. I've been, as y'all might not know, but I've been begging Peyton to let me on this show for like 9 months.
Yeah, and you're here. You finally made it.
I finally made it. Our ship stopped passing in the night and finally docked in the same harbor.
And now we're unloading our precious cargo.
Exactly.
Live on air.
Exactly.
What's up? Who exactly am I talking to?
You are talking to Allie M. Montgomery. I also go by Allie Mont, or just but most people just call me Allie. Not short for anything. I'm a 4th year at DePaul, comedy arts major.
Shout out.
And overall, huge fan of Peyton Basden.
Well, then you're in the right place because there's a lot of me here,
yes.
Which is always fun. Now, I didn't know Allie isn't short for. It's just pure raw Allie.
It's just Allie. I'm named after my mom's father, whose name was Albert, but he went by Al. So I always used to joke that I'm just glad I didn't get stuck with Alberta. But people will call me Allison, and if I don't like them, I'll be like, that's not my name.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's important to me that the fan base gets to know you a little better.
Oh, yeah.
That's why we've started this excellent segment that it's called The Passion Probe. Still a working title, but I like it. So
I think it's fun. I like the alliteration.
Right? Alliteration's important in like helping people remember your acronyms.
That's so true.
Or titles. And the questions start off simple. They get a little bit more difficult. It is a test. You will be graded.
Ooh.
It's really scary. And to show you, I'll toss you up a pretty simple one to start. Do you prefer cats or dogs?
See, that looks simple, but to me it's complicated because I grew up with dogs. I love doggies, but oh my gosh, if my mom is listening, this will be when she finds out. My roommate has a cat.
Oh.
And I've been courting him since she moved in, but she goes away to Naperville for like a week and a half at a time, which is fine. Like, do whatever you want, girl, but then she takes the cat and I miss him. But having him around has made me like appreciate cats a lot more. I like how I have to work for it. I like the chase. So I think I love them equally.
Oh, that's a beautiful answer.
Thank you.
I had to come around to cats in my time, which was a whole process. But like recently I've met a lot of great cats.
Yeah, they're
really
pretty lit.
My opinion.
And I think that it's also like an easier pet to have at our age. Because dogs have to be a lot more involved.
That's true.
Yeah.
Cats can do their own thing, and I respect that.
I do respect it.
I have a deep respect for that.
Yeah.
Okay. This next question. Would you rather have 4 arms or 4 legs?
Totally 4 arms.
Okay. What's the thought process here?
Well, imagine how many things I can hold. Like, I'm often holding many things in my hands.
Mm-hmm.
I could be, like, doing multiple things. Like, think about how much laundry I could fold with 4 arms.
You could probably do it twice as fast as you do right now.
Exactly. And, like, 4 legs, I think, would just get in the way. Like, what would I be doing with my extra legs?
I guess, I don't know if you'd walk faster or not.
I don't know either, because it's, like, I feel like they'd have to be on a different part of your body in order for you to like be able to take the full advantage of having 4 legs.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you just had like two pairs of legs that were right next to each other, that would just be like, or if they were like right behind your legs, like.
Right. I am hoping, I think in the process over the course of the show, to find the person who
that
says
wants four legs.
that wants four legs. And then maybe after that I can retire the question, but I'm
But
still
you got to
on my
get there
search.
first.
Yeah. Cuz I would take forearms. Forearms is actually really
That would
awesome.
be really helpful.
You'd be really good at piano.
Oh my god, you could play piano duets.
Right.
You could like play multiple instruments at the same time.
You could have like you could guitar and piano.
Exactly.
You could violin and guitar. Any amount of combination.
Exactly.
Yeah, but one day I'll find the person
One day.
who thinks 4 legs is awesome. Okay, next question. Favorite number?
2.
2. Any significance of 2? It's a great number.
I like the vibe.
It's a good vibe.
It's just like I like 2 and I like 36.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of 2s in 36.
Yeah. I don't know why they're just like chill. I don't know. It's like I don't have synesthesia, but it's like one of those things where like in my head those are like soothing.
You can feel them.
Yeah, I can feel
the
them.
power
Exactly.
of 2 and 36.
Exactly.
Okay, fantastic answer.
Thank you.
6 times 6, 36.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's even. See, that splits out really nicely.
It does.
And then it's like 2 and 3, but 3's and 36.
Exactly.
Okay, I see the appeal.
The vision.
You've sold me on this.
Exactly.
Favorite breakfast food?
I ate 2 Eggo waffles like the entirety of my school career, like elementary school through high school, basically every day. So I would say that a thing that I can do, a really yummy thing, is Eggo waffle, home style, toasted.
Amazing. 2
vegetarian sausages, specifically vegetarian.
Okay.
I grew up on vegetarian sausages. I cried when I learned that they had real meat in them. Well, they didn't have meat in them. And then it made sense because I was like, oh, every time I get sausage when I go out to eat, it tastes different. That, a little bit of grits. You mix up the sausage and the grits. You put it on the waffle. You make a sandwich. That shit. That stuff is gas.
Ooh.
It's bus.
I'm very intrigued.
It's awesome.
I'm very intrigued by that.
A little cream cheese on there, maybe. It's so yummy.
I found, like, as someone who lifelong hasn't been the biggest breakfast food fan, like, a breakfast sandwich really changes the game.
I love breakfast. I think it's my favorite meal.
It's a great meal.
I eat it, like, every day.
I was going to ask, are you a fan of brunch? But I know you are.
Because we're in a brunch group.
Yeah, we're mutuals in a brunch group.
Yeah, we are.
Which is amazing.
Which is so awesome.
Brunch, I think, is fantastic.
I love brunching.
Because as someone who wasn't super big on breakfast, I love the, like, lunch element.
Yeah, that you can have both. And there's just something, like, freeing about a brunch.
Right,
like,
right.
It's low expectations. It's the only meal that exists to have fun. Like,
right. And that I really value.
Same.
I really value that. Okay. Would you rather turn into a bird or a fish?
Oh, that's a hard one. I would say a fish.
Okay. What's the appeal of the sea?
I just love to swim around.
Mm.
I would love to swim around.
You swam, didn't you?
I did. My family is
Career
of swimmers. My sister swims in college right now. My mom swam in college. I don't know. Like, sometimes I'm like in the water and I'm like, this is home. I would love to just swim around all day. I think that'd be so fun.
Do you have a specific fish that calls to you?
Well, yesterday in my class, our check-in for my English class was, if you were a sea creature, what would you be? And I said a mimic octopus. So, I think that would be really fun. If I could go through little holes and also change color really quickly.
Mm-hmm. Octopi are, like, the best animals.
They're so
One
cool.
of the best.
Yeah, 100%.
I was recently in the Penguins of Madagascar film.
Oh, incredible.
Where, like, I believe John Malkovich is the villain, and he's an octopus.
That's awesome.
And I just remembered how much I liked that. That sparked joy.
That's so awesome.
Shout out John Malkovich, I guess.
Shout out the Madagascar franchise.
Yeah, longtime fan of the show, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
And lastly, this is the real question, the one where we get deep and reflective.
Yeah.
On our life. Is there a time that you can remember that you were like, wow, this is pure happiness?
Yes. So there is a time that I can distinctly remember, like, thinking in that moment. And it was my junior year of high school. I went to boarding school for theater, and we were doing an African dance class. And our teacher, her name is Alessia Caldwell. She's like one of the greatest teachers I've ever had. She is an incredible, incredible woman. And it was me, and it was my studio, which is like what we called our cohort. And I just remember, like, we went on a water break, and I just remember, like, walking out of the classroom being like, I don't know when I'll ever feel this. I just feel like exactly what happiness is, and I, like, wish I could record this or, like, bottle it up. Because it was just so beautiful and awesome. And that was, like, the first thing I thought about when you said that, because I remember in that moment thinking that. And it was just, like, cool to be dancing with people and just having a good time.
I love dance as like a tool for like unlocking not only like happiness but like yourself.
You're preaching to the choir. Like, I fell in love with dance coming to college, and it is like, I think it's a therapy to me. Is like my dance classes. I think everyone should. Getting in touch with your body in a way that's really creative is awesome.
Yeah, last year I had a quarter where it was just back to back to back classes, and it was tough because I got up really early and I'd be stuck in these rooms for hours on end. But then like my last class, we'd start every single time by just dancing, and it just refreshed my day, made everything so much better. And I'm like, wow,
it's so awesome, and I can't wait to make you dance very soon.
Oh yes, I'm excited.
Yeah,
I love dance, and dance is I'll commonly associated with song, and music, And speaking of songs and music, Allie, I think you're here to talk about something very music-related, I guess.
I am here to talk about something very musical-related. I'm here to talk about Chicago native hit American pop rock band Fall Out Boy, and they have a song called Dance Dance.
Oh, yes, We're Falling Apart.
Oh, yeah, at halftime.
Yeah, classic.
Classic.
So, for Fall Out Boy is the biggest, greatest band to ever exist.
Totally.
We know this. But perhaps if there's anyone in the audience who's relatively uninitiated, tell us about Fall Out Boy.
Let me tell you about Fall Out Boy. I'll start off, I'll interweave it with my own story of how I fell in love with Fall Out Boy. So Fall Out Boy, as I said, Chicago natives, but none of them are actually from the city of Chicago. 3 of them are from the suburbs. 1 of them is from Milwaukee. And so I love when I'm talking to other people in Chicago who are Fall Out Boy fans about how they always are talking about Chicago, because I'm like, bro, you're from Wilmette. You were from Evanston. But so picture it, it's the 90s. Chicago had a really big and bustling hardcore punk scene. So that's like people that screaming into the mic, like moshing around. And Mr. Pete Wentz was like the king of the scene. He was like, everybody knew who this guy was. So then he was like in all these bands. He was a student here at DePaul University studying poli-sci. He dropped out with 1 quarter left, which is like, I think when you go to DePaul, it makes it sound even crazier, because it's like, man, that's 10 weeks.
Oh, yeah, you were actually right there.
You were right there. Like, that would have taken, that's like 2.5 months, man. So he's doing all this stuff. He's in this band called Arma and Jealous, which is, was just like a hardcore band. And he's the singer for it, but he can't sing. But he's like a poet. So he's like screaming lyrics from the mic. And then there's this guy, Joe Troman, who at the time is a little baby 16-year-old who gets hired to play on an Arma and Jealous tour, like play guitar for it. And him and Pete become friends. And Joe is like, yo, I want to start another band, but I don't want it to be punk hardcore. I want to try doing something else. I want to do something that's like fun, like a pop punk kind of thing. And Pete Wentz is like, man, that sounds lit. Let's make it happen.
Awesome.
But they're like, we don't have anyone else for this band. And so then one day, Joe Troman is in a Borders, which is like a music bookshop. And he's talking to someone about Neurosis. And literally, Patrick Stump actually's him. Like, comes up to him at the store and is like, I actually know more about what you're talking about than you do. And then Joe Troman starts talking to him, and he's like, yo, man, you should join this. You should come do this thing. And Patrick Stump's like, great, I play drums. And Joe Troman's like, perfect, we need a drummer. We have a bassist and we have a guitarist, so we need a drummer and a singer. So Patrick Stump gives him some demos. This is a fun fact. Joe Troman liked the demos. P. Wentz hated them, thought they were bad. Yes, really? And that's going to sound crazy when I tell you what happened next. So then they show up to Patrick Stump's store. He famously was wearing black shorts, knee-high socks, and an Argyle sweater. He takes them down to their basement. He drums a little for them. And then they're like, oh, will you sing us some of the demos that you had? He pulls out a guitar. He starts singing. Everyone here's heard a Fall Out Boy song. We all hear what Patrick Stump's voice sounds like. Now imagine hearing that out of like a little 16-year-old. P. Wentz hears this, and he is like, and he's like, "You're it. You have to be our singer. You're our golden ticket." Patrick Stump's like, "Nah, man, I'm not a singer." Pete Wentz is like, "You are a singer. I'm gonna make you a singer." And Patrick Stump's like, "I'm not a singer," and he's like, "You are." And so then they start this little band, and Patrick Stump is reluctantly a singer. He has terrible stage fright, and so for the first many years of their career, Patrick Stump would go on stage with a hat pulled down so far down to his eyes and without his glasses, so that he literally could not see the audience. Which is crazy.
Awesome.
Which is awesome. And then Pete Wentz also was like, "Don't worry, man. You won't be the front man. I'll be the front man. You just gotta sing." Patrick Stump was like, "Cool." So then they start making music. They make an unofficial first album called Evening Out with Your Girlfriend, which is a hard album title. It's bad. It's not very good. I don't like it. Some Fall Out Boy fans like it. They don't even recognize it because it doesn't have the full band on it. And Patrick Stump was writing the lyrics. So then they're like, "Oh man, we need a drummer." And there's Andy Hurley, who has played with Pete Wentz before, is a very well known in the scene as his drummer. He's also a vegan straight edge, which means he doesn't eat meat, doesn't drink alcohol, doesn't do drugs. And he still is like that.
Awesome.
Awesome. He's so awesome. He owns a vegan cafe in Oregon now.
Oh, wonderful.
He's so lit. And so then Andy Hurley is like, "Oh, fine, I'll come play on your album." So then they make Take This to Your Grave, the beginning album that has the big song from that is Grand Theft Auto, Where's Your Boy Tonight? So then they make this album, and then they start touring on, and they're living in a van. It's the four of them in genuinely a white van. And that's what they were doing. They start touring this album. It's going great. They get signed to Fueled by Ramen, which is through Island Records, that produces Take This to Your Grave. And then they get a deal to make a second album called From Under the Cork Tree, which is named that because their van crashed under a tree. And so the album covers that. So they make this album. Between this, they go through a lot of personal problems. Pete Wentz has a really bad time, and he tries to kill himself at one point. And it's really sad, but that's important to note for future what's about to happen. It's 2005. This album comes out in 2005. 2005 Warped Tour. Are you familiar with the concept of Warped Tour?
I'm not.
Okay.
Anymore.
So the Vans Warped Tour was a tour. It was pop rock bands, and it was $20. You would go and you would just see. It was all day festival. And it was across the country. So 2005, all of the big punk bands did Warped Tour. So All Time Low, Blink, all of these people. So it's 2005, they're touring. Fall Out Boy initially starts, and My Chemical Romance is on this tour too. Awesome. This is summer of 2005. Initially starts, they're playing 10:45 a.m. By the end of that tour, they are headlining with My Chemical Romance. Oh. So this is known as the summer that they blew up. So then From Under the Cork Tree is out, and that has hit song Sugar We're Going Down.
Classic.
That and Dance Dance are the two big singles from that album, and Sugar We're Going Down, rockets them into big boy town.
Right.
So then at that time, they've just come off this album, and this is their second album, and it's doing great. And so now they're like, "Oh, we gotta repeat this." And in between these two things happening, Pete Wentz is becoming this front man of the band. He he's notoriously not very good at playing bass.
Awesome.
But so videos of him on stage in the early days, he's doing everything but playing bass. He's hanging upside down. He is going up to Patrick Stump and licking his neck. He's grinding on Patrick Stump. Joe Troman is spinning around. It's watching early Fall Out Boy videos is crazy. They played SNL after this sophomore album, and they have an anecdote where all of the sets on SNL are connected,
Yeah.
And they, after the dress rehearsal, got told off because they were moving so much that the entire SNL was just shaking back and forth because they were just going crazy on stage. So there these kind of band dynamics are starting to emerge, and Pete Wentz is heartthrob, and then he has an intimate picture get leaked.
Oh no!
Yeah, and this is starts the beginning of what I think is a fascinating thing where I've never seen. Pete Wentz got the media treatment of a woman. There are very few guys that were taken advantage of and abused by the press in the way that Pete Wentz was. It was very Britney Spears-esque type crazy things. There's a photo shoot from Under the Cork Tree or right around this time where they're covered in paint, And it's like a picture of them covered in paint. It's a silly picture. And then it's a quote from Pete Wentz that's like, I took a handful of pills and like wanted to die. And there's like people were asking him the most out of pocket questions things. It's crazy. So they go into this third album, Infinity on High, based off a Van Gogh quote. And they are like, how are we going to top this? And guess what? They end up topping it.
Amazing.
Songs off this album include their highest charting song, This Ain't a Scene, It's an Arms Race, which they say is the weirdest pop song of all time. It also has the hit Thanks for the Memories.
Classic.
It is an incredible, incredible album, and it talks about fame, and in their music videos for this album, they literally have a shot where they're, like, making fun of, like, where they're, like, addressing, like, how people were calling them sellouts, and, like, so a part of one of the music videos is, like, a director staging the Pete Wentz pictures and stuff. So they're making this, and they're huge now. Like, they are one of the bands at the time, including Pete Wentz, who is, like, one of the heartthrobs at the time. Like, he couldn't go anywhere. He literally says, like, there are 4 years of my life I can't remember. I didn't know how to do anything because I literally couldn't do anything. Like, people were taking me everywhere. So then things start to get a little rocky.
Is this the era where, like, the public opinion on Fall Out Boy just, like, completely shifted?
So, which is fascinating. So what happened is, this is post Infinity on High. People are loving these albums. So then they start working on this album Folie à Deux, which means the madness of two. And what's happening at this point is, one, Pete Wentz has got married to Ashley Simpson and had a baby.
Awesome.
I know, crazy. Patrick Stump is like, I'm the music. And then basically him and Pete just don't start getting along, but their relationship is so tenuous that it's affecting everything else. Because up to this point, how Fall Out Boy's music has worked is that at first, in the very beginning, Patrick tried to write the lyrics, but then Pete Wentz was like, this sucks, you're bad at this. And so, but they have it's very much, they're the, who's Elton's writing partner?
Bernie Taupin.
Yeah, they're the Elton and Bernie of pop punk. So what happens is that Pete Wentz will bring Patrick Stump just pages of not lyrics, just like words. Like just words. And then Patrick Stump is like literally has said like, I just read it and it comes to me. Like amazing. It's very beautiful. Their quotes about each other are really sweet. Like Pete is like, me and Patrick are one member of Fall Out Boy. Like I sing through him. And Patrick's like, there's no world in which I would be a singer without Pete Wentz. Like one of my greatest joys is telling other people's stories, and that includes Pete. It's very, very sweet. So they're kind of like now, they're in such tension that they're like, that is blocking the other two members. And Joe Trumman is like, hey man, I'm a musician too. Like, why can't I do anything here? So then and then Patrick Stump puts his whole heart and soul into this album. It's a really great album. And then people hated it. People were throwing like bottles of pee at them at concerts. And they were like, it was crazy to tour an album and have the album you're touring, people boo you off stage and like stand in the front row with their middle finger up. Like people hated this album. And then they were all fighting. The girls were fighting. And so they said, guys, we have to take a break. And what is known as the hiatus. And then so during the hiatus, Patrick Stump goes off. He writes a solo album called Soul Punk. It's pretty fun. He played all of the instruments on the whole thing, which is awesome. He also lost a bunch of weight because he was like pretty overweight at Folie à Deux, and then he lost a bunch of weight during Soul Punk. Started dressing really different. He dyed his hair blonde, wore suits, and he like put all of his savings into touring with like a good band, and then people didn't come to the tour. So he is like not having a good time when we get to like the end of 2011, 2012. Pete Wentz tries to start a band with BB Rexa. I know.
Okay.
And then it ends up fizzling out, and he just is kind of doing nothing. Like he talks about how it's weird to go from like being the guy from Fall Out Boy to like having nothing. Andy and Joe start a hardcore band, are in a hardcore band together called the DAMNED. Can I say that word?
Damned?
Yeah, the Damned Things. They're playing together, playing music and stuff. So they had the most successful post-hiatus career. They were vibing.
Amazing.
So then Patrick Stump is really sad. And he posts this crazy letter on Tumblr called We Liked You Better Fat, Confessions of a Pariah. Which, mind you, during Fall Out Boy's entire history, they were one of the really early adopters of social media, especially Pete Wentz. Like, his live journals, like you can go back and read things that became Fall Out Boy lyrics in them. So lots of like glimpsing into it. So Patrick Stump basically writes this whole Tumblr post that's like, I hate my life. I hate everything. I feel like I can't make art anymore. I feel like nobody likes me. I feel like a burnout. He was only 27 at this point.
Oh, wow.
He's like, I go and do solo shows and people say things like, we liked you better fat, like you're not good anymore. And he's all sad. And it's like really terrible to read.
Mm-hmm.
And then Pete Wentz reads this and he's like, no, my buddy. So he goes to Patrick Stump with a bag of burritos and he's like, hey man, want to try writing a song? And Patrick Stump's like, yeah, sure, let's do that. And then it doesn't really work out. And then a couple months later, they come back and they're like, hey, maybe we should do this again. And at this point, they like none of them were really talking during this period. After being like best friends and like having like the way that Pete Wentz used to talk about all of them, he'd be like, we are halves of each other's wholes. Like, so then they come back and they're like, can we start a band again? And Joe Troman is like, he's the hard. Andy Hurley's like, yeah. Joe Troman's the one where they have to really convince, because Joe Troman's like, if I'm not helping to write music, I don't want to be a part of this.
Right.
And then they were like, of course, you can help. So then they start off this era, and they're doing this all in secret. Like, don't want the media to come out. How this era gets announced is a picture of them burning their old albums and stuff in a fire. And it's like Save Rock and Roll, the album.
Yes.
Which
was that the album cover eventually?
No, the album cover eventually is like two guys.
It is.
But it was...
it's for the single.
Yeah.
Yep, Light 'Em Up.
Light 'Em Up, which is the lead single off of that, which is like the hardest thing ever. Like, that is a crazy way to announce a comeback. So they make Save Rock and Roll, and they were all really nervous because, you know, as you would be, one, you're coming off a hiatus, two, the last album you made people hated, and it was not commercially successful. It was the only album that didn't, like, chart. Well, I think it did chart.
But not.
But, like, not in the way that it had.
Right.
And now you're coming off of having so much success. But, so, My Song's Not What You Did in the Dark blows up. Huge song. Save Rock and Roll is a great album. They made a whole visual album, too, that goes along with it called The Youngblood Chronicles. It's really good. I highly recommend. The title track of that album has Elton John on it. Great album. Super good commercial success. And then pretty soon after that, they make another album. A lot of people consider it the sister album to Save Rock and Roll, and it's called American Beauty, American Psycho. That has Centuries on it. That has Uma Thurman on it. Like, more huge hits. So at this point, it's like, yes, Fall Out Boy forever.
They're so back.
They are so back. And then obviously they get some flack at this point too, because people are like, you're selling out your pop, and they're like, who cares? And so this is the time around when I found out, fell in love with Fall Out Boy, because I had heard Fall Out Boy songs in the way that you hear all songs on the radio.
Right.
But when I was around 13, which is around when these albums were coming out, I was really into Dan and Phil and 5 Seconds of Summer, and both of them loved Fall Out Boy and all of the other emo-y bands of the time, like Panic and 21 Pilots. So then I started getting into it, and I loved post-hiatus Fall Out Boy. So I loved Saving Rock and Roll, loved American Beauty, American Psycho, really just enjoyed them. And I was like, I would listen to those albums all the time until about the time when their next album, Mania, started coming out. Because then I was like, this isn't really my vibe. And Mania is now, I think, their most controversial album, because it doesn't sound like any other Fall Out Boy album. It's super poppy, super synthy. But if you don't get if you don't like Mania, it's because you don't get it, and you're not appreciating the art of it enough. I love it, but it's, funnily enough, I think this was actually the only album where no single charted in, like, the top 10, but it's also the only album they got a Grammy nomination for.
Oh, what?
Which is crazy, right? I know. For Best Rock Album.
Oh.
So they've only been nominated for that, and then Best New Artist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that crazy?
Mm-hmm.
Shows what the Grammys really mean.
Think about it.
They make Mania, and then they're like, cool, we're going to chill. And then the pandemic happens, and that stops a lot of artists from making music. And so then they're coming back from the pandemic, and they're like, we want to make another album. But we don't want to make an album that sounds like old Fall Out Boy. But also we don't want to make another album that sounds like Mania. So we're going to make something. We're going to bring back the same producer, Neil Averon, who we used on our early Fall Out Boy. But we're going to tell him we don't want to make old Fall Out Boy. And so then this is when I started getting back into them, because around when they first started releasing the singles for this new era, So Much for Stardust, which was like late 2022, early 2023, people freaked out. It was the first time in 5 years that there's a Fall Out Boy album, because Mania came out in 2018. Yeah, so it was early 2023. People were like, what? And so then I was like, oh yeah, Fall Out Boy, I forgot about those guys. I love those guys. I started listening to them, and then I really passively listened to them all through 2023, which is when So Much for Stardust came out. Which is, in my opinion, one of the best post-pandemic albums. Like, it says really interesting things about art and like living. They ended up having, it was called Tour Dust, and awesome. They have the loudest show of all time at Wrigley Field. People could hear them up to like 2.5 miles away. It was something about the wind in the air that day, but it was crazy. And so then they announced another tour called Tour Dust, like Tour, continuing touring this album. So I'd passively listened to Fall Out Boy through 2023, and they were my 5th most listened to artist, which I was like, oh, that's pretty lit. And so then I was like, oh my gosh, they're coming to Milwaukee, and I didn't get to see them in Chicago because I was out of town. I really want to go see them in Milwaukee. I don't know. I'd have to buy a ticket, and I have to go to Milwaukee. And then I wasn't going to buy a ticket, and then a week before, my friend Ellie, who lives in like another part of Illinois, was like, hey, I'm going to go see Fall Out Boy in Milwaukee. I could take you if you want to go. And I was like, yes. So I bought the ticket literally like 5 days before the concert.
Awesome.
I go, and then I just like, bro, life-changing. It was such a good show. It was incredible. It was so theatrical, like just incredible. I see the show. I'm like, this is the best thing ever. I go home. And then ever since then, it's been like all Fall Out Boy all the time for Allie. Like, just saw them again at Riot Fest. I waited all day. Was at Barricade. It was crazy.
How was that? Like, they haven't released any new music within the past year, have they?
No, not within the past year.
So was their set like more of like a solo? Like, what did they kind of play when they're just like headlining this festival?
Their festival set that they've been doing since June is this really awesome thing called Days of Fallout Past, which is like which is like, I mean, the Fall Out Boy Eras tour almost. So they basically, it starts off, it's Patrick Stump in a hospital bed.
Whoa.
And he sings the opening of this song called Disloyal Order of the Buffaloes from Folie à Deux, and the lines are, I'm falling apart at the seams, pitching myself as leads in other people's dreams. Like, buzz, 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 doc, there's a hole where something was, there's a hole where something was. And so he's in this hospital bed being all confused. And then he gets out of the hospital bed, they come out, and they start playing the song called Chicago Is So 2 Years Ago, which hearing that in Chicago was crazy. Like, they were losing their minds on stage. We were all losing our minds. And so then they play through, like, in chronological order, songs from all the albums. Wow. And while that's happening, the visuals behind them are the visuals they used in those eras. And then they're interspersed with, like in the transitions, it'll be, like, clips from those times. So, and then it's, like, they have huge sets. Like, the cover of Folie à Deux is these two bears, and they have a big blow-up version of those bears behind them. During Mania, Patrick gets on top of this like volcano. They have a giant couch that's like Take This to Your Grave, and they play through all of that. And then they get to the end of the set, and they do this thing they've been doing on Tour Dust, which is called a Magic 8 Ball, which is like surprise songs. And so Pete Wentz will be like asking the Magic 8 Ball questions, and then they'll play two surprise ones. So mine at my first show in Milwaukee were Get Busy Living or Get Busy Dying, do your part to save the scene, stop going to shows. And then a song called Pavlov, which Pavlov, I never know how to say it because it's Pavlov with an E at the end.
Oh, I like Pavlov.
I like Pavlov, which was a demo that only got released in like summer of 2022. So that people freak out when that song gets played. And then my 8 balls for Riot Fest were, I slept with someone in Fall Out Boy, and all I got was this stupid song written about me, and then a song called Headford Slide into Cooperstown on a Bad Bet. Both old songs, as you can tell by the length of those titles.
That is one of my favorite era things.
Oh,
of like
100%.
Then where every single like song title for like any sort of like punk alternative like song or album is just a sentence.
A sentence. And they talk about, Pete Wentz talked about, well, that's why Thanks for the Memories is titled like that, because the label was like, you got to stop doing this, guys. And he was like, cool, then I'm just going to take out all the vowels. And then he was, but I love how they talk about it, because they were like, yeah, people have asked us if we do that again, when it's like, no, like that would feel gimmicky if we did that now. But then that's what they do to end the show, and then they end the show by playing Centuries, and then they end every Fall Out Boy show with the same song their whole career. It's a song called Saturday. The hat that I was wearing earlier has the opening line. I'm good to go, I'm going nowhere fast. And a really devastating thing about pre-hiatus Fall Out Boy is that Saturday is like all about Fall Out Boy, and there's this like every time the song is sung, there's a line that goes, Patrick sings, "Pete and I attacked the laws of Astoria," and he always like points to Pete. And then after that verse, there's a part where they sing more than an hour, and then it's like echoed back. And every time they sing that song, they look at each other and they sing more than an hour to each other. And there is this gut-wrenching video in the last show they played before their hiatus. It was Madison Square Garden. And during Saturday, Mark Hoppus of Blink-182.
Oh, shout out.
Shout out. Comes on stage and shaves Pete Wentz's head. And it's like very symbolic, but like it is like you're sitting, it's like Pete Wentz in a chair with a red Solo cup, getting his head shaved, like unfocused eyes, just drinking, and Patrick Stump walks up to him to sing more than an hour, and Pete Wentz just like doesn't look at him at all. Wow. And it is like heartbreaking to watch. But they always end with that show, and Pete Wentz comes up to the barrier of the crowd and like touches everyone's hands. And it's like, we're in the wake of Saturday. And it's super cute. So they're awesome live. They're a great live band.
That's incredible to hear. It sounds like, I mean, you talked about before, like this crazy energy that they had, especially back in the day, and it seems like they still have that now.
Definitely, as much as they can. Like Joe Trumman had a lot of back problems, so he can't spin around. Everyone should look up Joe Trumman playing guitar in like 2006 because it's actually crazy. He literally was spinning in circles, but he can't do that anymore. But they all just like. It's clear now that they're enough in their career where they're like just doing it because they love it, and like they have such a good time. And it's also really emotional to watch Patrick Stump now because, like I said, he used to have all this stage fright, and now he like can own himself on stage, and it's like really sweet to like see like growth from someone like that and just like being excited, and it's awesome.
What do you think is next for Fall Out Boy as a band, as a venture?
Okay, it's really scary because this week is the last time that Fall Out Boy is confirmed playing for the future that we know of yet. And it's like one of those things where I'm on Fall Out Boy Twitter and everyone's like, I know Fall Out Boy is gonna play again. Like, I know that they're not gonna leave. Like, I know that it's not over, but it's scary. So they've talked about how, like, continuing forward, they're in a place where they only want to make music when it's like they feel like the drive to.
Right.
Because so much of their early career was like stress and like having to like make things because you had to and stuff, and now that they've gone through like having albums that haven't been received and stuff, but they've also like there are a lot of other creative projects that they've done before, like so a lot of I think it would be awesome if they did a Fall Out Boy movie or a Fall Out Boy musical, and I could see something like that happening, like an interesting,
like American Idiot, like musical. I'd be there for that
because they're all really talented musicians and creatives. Like Patrick Stump is. His main job is not Fall Out Boy. His main job is he's a composer, and he composes for like his big one is I don't know if you have heard of Spidey and His Amazing Friends, which is a show.
The television
show. He does all of the music for that.
Awesome.
I know. So that's what his like day job is, and he was the voice of Lego Batman. And wrote the theme song for Lego Batman.
That's awesome.
Isn't that awesome?
Okay, yeah, that's awesome.
And so, like, he does that, and then Pete Wentz is, like, I think one of the greatest songwriters of all time. He's Taylor Swift's favorite songwriter.
Really?
So then I always say, like, I mean, I feel like one of my favorite Fall Out Boy lyrics is, I love you in the same way there's a chapel in a hospital. And I'm like, that is just like the craziest thing in the world. Like, how do you, whatever. But he also has like a clothing brand. I have the hoodie here. Shout out Clandestine Industries. And he like has a tennis club. That's how I played tennis with him one time, which was like the craziest thing ever.
Right. I was going to say, didn't you play tennis with him like a few weeks ago?
Like genuinely like less than a month ago, which was like nuts. He just like loves tennis. He's like one of those celebrities that like if he is interested in something, he just like will do something with it.
So how does this happen? How do you get
to play tennis with Pete Wentz? Okay, so he posts something on Instagram that is like, lucky losers, we're collaborating with Riot Fest. And I was like, oh my God. This is like the Wednesday before I see them at Riot Fest. And I'm like, oh, what is this? An event? And I'm like, I don't know what this is going to be. Because they're like, more information coming soon. And I'm like, well, Riot Fest is in a couple days. Like, is this going to be a pop-up? Like, what's going to happen? And so then literally Thursday morning, September 19th, at like 11 a.m., they're like, Lucky Losers tennis event. It's at 5 p.m. It's 5 to 8. Super limited capacity. first come, first serve. Any ability, any age can come play tennis. And I'm like, I have to be there. So I leave immediately from class. I've never played tennis before. I go home, put on a tennis outfit, and I go and I sit in line for 4 hours with other people. And then I go, and it literally was the craziest event ever. It was literally a tennis workshop. Like,
awesome.
There was an actual coach there teaching us tennis, and then Pete Wentz's coach was also there, who is like a tennis coach to the stars. Like, his Instagram bio, he also coaches like Dakota Fanning and like Steve Carell.
Oh, wonderful.
And so then there's like one group that's like really good. The couple of people there who actually play tennis that are playing with Pete Wentz, and the girl I was next to in line was over there because she actually plays tennis. And I took a bunch of pictures and videos of her because she got to play against Pete like a whole bunch, like play doubles with him basically. And then I'm like hitting tennis ball, hitting it back with Pete Wentz, and then I'm in this mindset where I'm like, I'm gonna be really normal. Like I'm here for a tennis event, and Pete Wentz just happens to be here. So I'm not going to go up to him at all.
Right.
So I ended up just getting the pictures at the end when we all took it. But I felt like, I was like, yeah, I wish I could have gotten a better picture, but also like, I would have felt weird.
Right,
I get really, I've met a lot of celebrities, but for some reason it still makes me feel weird in lots of situations.
Right.
And so then it was just like, and he was just there, and he's really short. He's like 5'6". So it was like, he literally is just a guy, and he's like playing tennis and goofing off with everyone. And I'm like, this is the craziest thing ever. And then the next day I was at Riot Fest all day, and I was like, wow, this is crazy.
And then he noticed you, and he's like, oh.
I did get noticed by the drummer, Andy.
Oh, okay.
During a break in one of the songs, I was going, Andy, Andy, Andy. And then he went,
oh. And
he's super cute. And I went, but I didn't, you know, when you're at a concert and there's like artist interaction, but it's like a big show, so you can't tell if it was to you or to someone else.
Right.
So then I yelled, did Andy just wave at me? And everyone around me just turned and went, yes! And I went, I freaked out. It was awesome.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Would you say, like, in your personal journey with Fall Out Boy?
Yeah.
I feel like these past few weeks have been like a renaissance.
Oh, totally. Since April, it's been a big old renaissance. Like, this has been like, because I've always loved them. And the first time I got really into them, I was really only into their music. I didn't really engage in the fandom side of it as much. But now I'm like really engaged in like the fandom side of it as well. So I have like Fall Out Boy mutuals on Twitter and stuff, and I look at the fan art, I read the fan fiction, all of that good stuff. Really cry, like freaking out over pictures of guys in they're now all in their 40s.
Wow.
Officially, just recently. Joe Troman just turned 40.
Congratulations, Joe. Happy birthday.
I know. So I'm like, it's really funny to be like, oh my God. But the Fall Out Boy fandom is really interesting because they're very different from other fandoms where like, like I'm a big fan of Dan and Phil as well. And Dan and Phil just have a whole storied history that is layered. That means that people are really careful about the things that they say and how they talk about him. So like people have gotten really mad at people for like making jokes about like someone would made a joke and called Phil Lesser a she, her, and people got so mad. And then people on Fall Out Boy Twitter are like, Pete Wentz is transgender. Estrogen would save her. That is a beautiful woman right there. And it is just really funny to see like that kind of vibe, because also like they are chill with that stuff. I don't know. It's just really funny to see like the way that people are like, yes.
I'm intrigued by the Fall Out Boy fandom, and you gave me a little bit of a glimpse into there, because I know like some fandoms can get like crazy about like their artists, but I'm also intrigued by like the composition of the fandom, because they feel like they have two distinct eras. You have that era in like the 2000s. You
got the pre-hiatus and the post-hiatus.
Right. And do those attract like different kinds of fans?
Definitely there are people that are like, most of the spheres that I'm in are people that fell in love with Fall Out Boy during their most recent like album cycle. And so a lot of people that I interact with are people that are like all of Fall Out Boy. But there definitely are people that like really dislike their post-hiatus stuff, because it is different. Like, it's much more pop focused.
Right.
But it's also really interesting because it definitely swings probably the oldest of fandoms that I'm a part of. Like, there are a lot of more people that are in like late 20s and stuff, early 30s. And so then there are also more people that genuinely follow Fall Out Boy on tour, like in ways that like I have friends that will like go to multiple dates of tours, but people who like saw them like 10 or 15 times and like can go go see them at every festival and stuff because they have real adult money, because they have real adult jobs.
Shout out real adults.
Shout out real adults. So that's definitely really interesting. And people tend to get people get really defensive about certain albums and stuff. And if you don't like it, especially things like Mania and their most recent album, people are like, you just don't get the art.
And it's capital A art.
Capital A art, bro. You're not understanding the social commentary of what Pete Wentz is saying when he wrote the line, "I'll stop wearing black when they make a darker color," and the commentary on how that is satirizing the traditional emo experiences.
Wow.
And these big feelings of despair that we have. Yeah.
How has Fall Out Boy interacted, I guess, with other bands that were primarily the big bands of the time, or the names? Do you know how the other people in the community feel about them?
It's interesting because one, Fall Out Boy created Panic at the Disco. Not created, they are the reason that so Pete Wentz has a record label. It used to be called Decay Dance, now it's called DCD2, and that is also his main thing, is he works and supports these artists on his label, and he signed Panic at the Disco to his label. So he has made money off of every Panic at the Disco song. So
Amazing.
He has a platinum record for High Hopes in his house. So he owns that, obviously. And so then they, as I said, toured with My Chemical Romance, and there's a whole thing about if Pete Wentz and Mikey Way, the bassist of My Chemical Romance, had an affair during that warped tour. And I'm what I like to call a peaky truther, but not a peaky supporter. I agree that I think they got a little funky, but I don't some people are like, every song Pete Wentz has written since then is about Mikey Way. But what's interesting is that, so as I said, this weekend is their final performance that we know for the rest of the year. And that is at the When We Were Young Festival in Vegas. October 19th and 20th, this Saturday and Sunday. The headliners are Fall Out Boy and My Chemical Romance. And also with this, there's been lots of talks with this. A lot of bands that are less successful than Fall Out Boy that came out at the same time have a lot of resentment towards them because they're sellouts. They made this, All American Rejects has said weird stuff about them.
Really? That's really funny.
I know. And other bands at the time, because they're they're sellouts. They and it's well, sorry that they're just more successful than you. And that they embraced the changes that come with music genre. Because if you look at the Billboard charts in 2007, when it's emo was on those charts,
right.
But that stuff, if Welcome to Black Parade came out today, that would not chart in the way that it did.
Right.
So sorry that they evolved with the times. But so this weekend, Fall Out Boy is performing, My Chemical Romance is performing, and there was this heritage post on Tumblr in 2015, which basically means that is one of the posts of the site that goes, no, but seriously imagine it. You're seeing Fall Out Boy in concert, and suddenly in the middle of the show, Patrick Stump says, "Hey, I've got a surprise for everyone." And then My Chemical Romance comes out, and the beginning of the Black Parade starts, and they start playing the Black Parade. And while the Black Parade is playing, Brendan Urie walks out and starts singing This Is Gospel. And then while those songs are both playing, Dan and Phil come out with a gay pride flag and they kiss. And I remember seeing this when I was 13 and being oh my God, that would be the greatest thing to ever happen. This is pre Dan and Phil coming out. This is everything happened. And also this is just post when one of the number one, if I go back in time and see this tour, was Fall Out Boy, Panic at the Disco, 21 Pilots in 2014. So that's it's right when Blurry Face was coming out, 21 Pilots.
Awesome.
Right before Death of a Bachelor, Panic at the Disco, Save Rock and Roll, Fall Out Boy would have been crazy. They've also just randomly toured with a lot of great people. They toured with, the last tour they did before this one was Hella Mega with Weezer and Green Day.
Yes,
they've toured with Wiz Khalifa.
Oh, wait, awesome.
They just have done a lot of really fun tours with people, which I think speaks to how they're cool. But anyway, so When We Were Young lineup gets announced, Fall Out Boy and My Chemical Romance. Phil of Dan and Phil tweets, "No, but seriously imagine it." Quote tweets it. And then people are like, how do you know about this? You should know about this post. And so then, but people were like, oh, that's kind of funny. He said this. And then Dan and Phil announced they're going on tour. Their October 17th or 18th show is in Los Angeles. The next show they have is on the 20th or the 21st in Salt Lake City, Utah. Do you know what city is right between Salt Lake City, Utah, and Los Angeles? Las Vegas. So that comes out and people are like, wait, they actually have to drive through Las Vegas to get there. Like, okay, and they don't have a tour scheduled. And also October 19th is the 15th anniversary of Dan and Phil meeting in person. So people are like, wait a second. This is kind of like, wait, what? And then Dan and Phil have kept talking about it. And then also the schedule for When We Were Young just got announced, and Fall Out Boy and Michael McCormick are on stages directly next to each other, one after the other. And so people are literally like,
it could happen.
It could happen. It's like one of those things where I'm like, I don't think it will, but like
What
too
if?
many things have happened. I think that there will be an acknowledgement from Dan and Phil at least, but it's really funny because it's like, well, this could happen now. And also people are really excited to see a picture of Fall Out Boy and My Chemical Romance, hopefully backstage together.
That'd be awesome.
But they also, like, Pete Wentz, his label, had a bunch of people on it who were like huge people of the scene at the time. So Cobra Starships, which has, their songs. Oh, what's the big one? Good Girls Go, Good Girls Go Bad. And there's another one. I'm looking it up right now because I know there's another big one. But they also, Gym Class Heroes, which everybody.
Love Gym Class Heroes.
I would argue, one of the most influential musical influences of that time that gets one of the most underappreciated musical acts of the early 2000s. Like, they had so many bangers. I forget what the other one was, but there were a bunch of Cobra Starships was like huge. If I played you a Cobra Starship song, you would know what it was. Gym Class Heroes. All of these people were in this label that Pete Wentz had, so they were all like buddies and touring. The Academy is with William Bennett. Like, they were all buddies and touring together, and it's like crazy the amount of content you can look back on. And they were all so fruity in the way that emo boys were in 2008. It's crazy.
That's amazing. I didn't know how well connected Fall Out Boy is.
Oh, yeah, and one of my favorite little domino effects that I thought was really funny is that, they started the career of all these people. They're so well connected, and Pete Wentz's parents met working for Joe Biden. So there's a whole chart that's like Joe Biden and how he is the reason for all of these massive pop culture events.
That's fantastic.
Pete Wentz's parents work for him.
That's a beautiful love story.
Isn't that incredible?
Right. Maybe I'll meet my person working on Joe Biden's staff.
I know. And I really want Fall Out Boy to come to DePaul again.
Right. They should come back.
They should come play the Court Liu Commons, where their first ever show. Every other band that played that night, there's film of it. There's no film of Fall Out Boy performing.
Wow.
But they were confirmed. They did perform that day. And I always think about one of my favorite things to tell people is whenever I read Fall Out Boy fan fiction, a lot of it, sometimes it'll take place at DePaul, and people just have really incorrect DePaul details. I read one recently that just kept calling us the Blue Devils.
Like, yes, that's us.
No, guys, please. Blue Demons. But they love Chicago. They have a whole EP that's literally just about how much they love Chicago.
That's beautiful.
I know, it's crazy.
We love our good Chicago-based bands.
We do.
Allie, our time has nearly come to a close.
I know, it's so
which
sad.
Is a great tragedy. But before we go off into the great beyond, do you have any closing thoughts, feelings, opinions, places for people to start if they want to get big into Fall Out Boy?
Oh my God, yes, I definitely do. Well, one, if you know me personally or follow me on Instagram at Allie.Mont, ALY.MONT, I love making people personalized Fall Out Boy playlists because I think everyone has Fall Out Boy songs that they can listen to and love. I think everyone should listen to their newest album. But also, man, their discography is so good. If I ranked all of Fall Out Boy albums, they would all be tied. Like, I genuinely cannot rank them. The whole thing is so good. And so I would just say, like, also it's really fun to, if you're ever bored, read through their Wikipedia page because it's crazy. Like, they've had such a crazy career and so many random things. They, like, played at the after party for Barack Obama's inauguration.
Awesome.
Like, random stuff that's just, like, crazy. And they're one of those bands that's been, like, everyone knows, like, who Fall Out Boy is.
Right.
But, like, not many people know, like, who Fall Out Boy is.
Yeah.
So I think do that. And you know what? Just re-listen to Thanks for the Memories because it's such a great song. Like, genuinely incredible. And be like, wow, this is so good.
One night and one more time. Allie, thank you for the memories.
Thank you for having me, Peyton.
And actually this time they were sweet. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me talk about Fall Out Boy and for a long time in a big blocks of talking. I know you didn't get to ask many questions, but
I learned a lot.
You did. I hope everyone feels like they have a better understanding of Fall Out.
This show is about the passion, and you brought it in spades.
Yep.
And speaking of passion, that's the end of today's episode, but we're going to have a lot more passion coming back next week just for you, so stay tuned. Thank you so much again to Allie for being here, and thank you for listening. I'll see you all in 1 week's time. Keep it cool.
Lit.
We've done it. We've done it.